Hello everybody, MegaZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting collection reflection video where I take the time out to just go through my whole entire gaming library. It could be a game and it could be a console or it could be a limited edition. But today we're going to be talking about none other than Splatoon 3. Look, it's been long overdue for me to go ahead and talk about this game. I put endless hours, not only in this game, but the predecessor being Splatoon 2. So you know I have a whole bunch of stuff to say about this game, especially with me being a rank X player. Like, I went the distance. I almost did almost everything you almost possibly could do up in this game though. So in today's video, I'm just going to go through and just talk about the things I really like, the things I really enjoy, but then also a few little nitpicks that I might have with this game though, and who knows what this could potentially lead into a Splatoon 4 some point in the distant future whenever that inevitably hits out on the Nintendo Switch 2 though. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you're going to hit that like button, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. And if you're curious just to become a channel member, just to support the channel just a little bit more, then feel free to hit that join link down below. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. Splatoon 3. Now this game right here, oh my goodness gracious. Look, we came right off the heels of Splatoon 2. Remember when that game came out originally back in 2017 with the original launch of Nintendo Switch? And that game was running on for like, you know, a handful of years. And it felt like it had a really great life, had a lot of great different maps and stuff like that, a lot of good weapon kits and stuff. I really did like the story. The story was okay for the mainline stuff, but the DLC with Octo expansion was extremely good and stuff like that. I did talk about that in the previous collection reflection video, so you can click that card in the corner at some given point though. But for Splatoon 3, I remember we were in limbo with Splatoon 2 for about a couple or almost a few years at this point though. And then they came out in one direct and said, hey, we got a new Splatoon game in the works. And I was like, oh my goodness. I thought Splatoon was going to be one of those game series where it's going to be similar to like a Mario Kart or Smash Brothers, where we only would get one game in the series per console. Like we had Splatoon 1 on the Wii U. I thought Splatoon 2 was going to be on the Switch, and I thought whenever we got Splatoon 3, it was going to be on the next console. But lo and behold, Nintendo, you know, being the kings of left field as they are, they said, you know what, we're going to put 2 out on the same generation in the console life. And I was like, hey, so I was thinking to myself, like, what all could they add? What all can they do to kind of differentiate this game versus the predecessor? And instantly when I was looking back at that trailer, I noticed, you know, the 2 major things that was going to change gameplay quite a bit. The fact that you had the squid roll ability and the squid surge. Squid surge, you know, you're being able to charge and shoot yourself up a wall or something like that. I don't catch myself using that a whole bunch, but more than often not, the one thing you probably use constantly is the squid rolling, which, you know, if you do it with the right kind of timing, it actually saves you from getting killed by certain things like a splat bomb and things like that. So honestly, when I saw little things like that changed up the core dynamic, like you can't necessarily do those things in Splatoon 2, I was like, oh, okay, you know, this game is gonna be quite different from the first game with Splatoon 2. And then obviously they had all the different maps and stuff. And you know, for me personally, I enjoyed a good chunk of these maps. The new ones that were introduced in Splatoon 3. There's a few nitpicks here and there though, but like for the most part, I thoroughly enjoy most of the maps though. But for some people, they can kind of all come to a general consensus that, yeah, it seems like it was a little bit more enclosed. Like there wasn't as many flank routes as you had in some of those big wide open Splatoon 1 maps and such though. So, you know, some people can get a little bit frustrated if you get a little bit outrange or something like that, especially going up against like a sniper or someone that's mainly like a heavy splatland or like a Hydra or something like that. So yeah, it's a little bit of frustrations on that part though, but I do like the kind of vibe and stuff each one of those maps happen to give off though. And then also you got to talk about the weapon kits themselves, which honestly, coming off of Splatoon 2, I was really a heavy, for the most part, I was mostly an Octobrush user. I like to kind of get up in people's face and stuff. That was just usually was my go-to weapon between that and I think the Tri-Slosher. I was kind of going back and forth between those two though. But late in the Splatoon 2 life, I started getting into the heavy Splatland game. And since then, it's been a wrap. That's the game I've mostly been repping here in Splatoon 3. And man, oh man, like there's a lot of situations where, you know, just having the range comes into big critical play and stuff like that though. So yeah, in terms of the weapon kits, they're pretty cool. They did manage to introduce like new things, new weapon classes entirely though. So like for each thing, like whether it been the slosher class or the brush class and stuff like that, they managed to add new weapons to the whole entire family. So like for the brush class, you had the paintbrush and such, and then in terms of like the splatling thing, you had like the heavy edit splatling though. So I like how they managed to add in a whole bunch of new weapons where it's kind of like a fusion of like two different other kits put together though. So it did kind of add in a little bit more diversity where you didn't necessarily have that too much going on in Splatoon 2. It was just kind of taking some of the kits you already know, adding in a few different things though, but not like a whole subcategory within the main one for the most part though. And then you also have to look at the specials, which the specials, they carried a lot of them over from Splatoon 2, such as like, you know, the Inkjet special and things like that. They carried stuff like that over, and then added in a whole smorgasbord of new specials, such as like the crab tank and stuff. So overall, I like most of the kits that they have up in there. Granted, you know, this is going to vary from person to person, depending on whether you like to, you know, shoot from distance, whether you like to be up close, whether you rather have a melee weapon, which I think that's the beauty of Splatoon, the fact that you might have a whole bunch of different preferences out there, but given all of these different kits, which, shoot, they had almost about 50 different weapons right at the start of launch, let alone all the updates they had along the way, though, there's a little bit of something for everybody, though. Now, of course, you have to also bring in the question of, well, how did they manage to implement all of these new updates? Because Splatoon, it's not necessarily dubbed as a live service game, but at the same point, it kind of has that feeling of it, though, without you having to pay a bunch of money, though. Because one of the new things they introduced in Splatoon 3 was a whole season aspect where you're actually able to, you know, complete a catalog and stuff, get like certain gear and stuff. It's almost like a mini version of a battle pass that you would have from Fortnite or whatever. It kind of gave you incentive to kind of keep playing this again and again, like every day. When the clock reset, if you just won one battle, that's an instant level up, along with how many other battles you happen to do throughout the day. It's just a little bit of experience here and there though. But yeah, that was like the main way how they managed to give you all your new weapons, all your new gear and stuff. You just have to kind of slowly grind that mess out though. So for me personally, I really like the formula. Obviously, it does get a little bit old after you have to do it so many times though, but that was a kind of an interesting way to kind of keep you constantly, you know, engaged with the game. Whereas with Splatoon 2, they kind of spread that mess out. You were getting updates every couple of weeks though, but sometimes it might just be a simple weapon or just simple gear drops and stuff like that, rather than in, you know, every 3 months you just had, boom, here you go, all these new weapons, all these new stages and stuff like that. Occasionally you might have a brand new special or something like that though. So yeah, that's how for the most part most of the updates were handled in this game though. So I thought it was all right. And then you have to also talk about the story aspect. There's the main story and what they added in with the DLC. In terms of the main story itself, man, that was leagues better than I think what they did with Splatoon 2. It was more engaging. It did have some ramifications and built onto some stuff with Splatoon 2 with the whole Grisco thing. I won't go too heavily up in it in case you hadn't, managed to beat the story at this point in the game. I don't know how you hadn't though. But rest assured, I just thoroughly enjoyed the story a lot more. There was a lot more challenges. I like, exploring that open world from, going from level to level. I just thought that atmosphere was just a lot better though. And the final boss battle, oh man, that was just a chef's kiss though. And then obviously you have to talk about Deep Cut, which are also the brand new idols of this game, Shiver, Fry, and Big Man. Now, in terms of the three, I think my personal favorite obviously is Shiver. I ain't a Shiver simp, but Shiver, she's just a cool girl. I just like her though. And then Big Man's also pretty cool though. Fry is probably the lowest on the totem pole, but that's nothing to take away from any one of these three idols because I think all of them do a great, phenomenal job. And they also were able to incorporate these three into the main story themselves, along with Callie Marie, which always happen to pop up in the main story though. So, honestly, good stuff right there. But then you also have to talk about the DLC story, which I felt like that was the part where, at least for Splatoon 3, it took a little bit of a nosedive in terms of the quality of it, because obviously with the DLC, it was built and geared around a roguelike. Now, honestly, if you look at me and my personal takes in terms of like personal interests and stuff, I'm not necessarily the biggest Rogue fan. Like, I like some visual novels, I like my shooters with Splatoon and stuff, love RPGs, play the mess out of that stuff though, but roguelikes just ain't necessarily it for me. And I can understand how they might have went down that approach just to kind of give you a little bit more replay value, because you're supposed to go through these floors and one after the other, you know, you're knocking out either just simple enemies, solving like a quick little puzzle though, but just trying to stay alive as you kind of keep going up these floor levels. However, if you manage to get killed, you lose all your lives and stuff like that though, then you're restarting all the way back down at floor 0 though. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, it was all right. I mean, there's some cool awards and stuff, and if you like roguelikes, you might really like this though. But in comparison to like the Octo expansion that we got in Splatoon 2, I don't know, I just felt like it was a little bit of a letdown, because like Octo expansion, you had so many good themes, the music was good, the challenges were there, it kind of incentivized you to go through and challenge it with different weapons and stuff. Yes, you can do some of the similar stuff within, you know, this DLC for Splatoon 3 though, but I don't know, I felt like a lot of that pizzazz was kind of gone. Pearl and Marina were great at the roles, don't get me wrong, but I was like, I don't know, it just wasn't checking off all the boxes like I was personally liking an Octo expansion. So here's hoping in Splatoon 4 we get a better DLC story, and by extension carry over the good story that we had in Splatoon 3 versus Splatoon 2, where I thought it was just okay at best though. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the stories and stuff like that though. And then outside of that, then you have to look at the multiplayer aspect side of things though, which a lot of great stuff that they managed to do. Some things that took quite a few updates before they managed were, you know, to get a little bit better. And then some stuff in between though, because obviously when you look at the multiplayer stuff, your main bread and butter is turf war. That's like the ground principle of like any Splatoon match. You're always playing the turf war, even in the ranked modes themselves. Obviously, you paint on the ink, you paint the ink on the ground, you use that to be able to traverse and, you know, get closer to your enemies and stuff. Obviously, you try to splat them so they can't, you know, paint as much ink. And, you know, and the rest is kind of history though. So turf wars is the basic thing where you're just trying to paint all across the map, which it's a nice mode, don't get me wrong, but I was like, I'm always more the fan of being able to do ranked battles. Like that's where all my playtime goes within Splatoon. And then obviously you had the 4 ranked modes themselves. Obviously tower control, splat zones, as well as Rainmaker. All 3 of those returned from Splatoon 2, but then you also had the inclusion of Clan Blitz, which was added in Splatoon 2 after launch. But then now with Splatoon 3, we had that on day 1. Out of all 4 of the modes, Clan Blitz is my least enjoyed mode between all 4 of them though. So I'm really quick to do a quick game of Tower Control or Rainmaker. Rainmaker I think is my personal favorite though. And then obviously Splat Zones. But then when it comes to Clan Blitz, it's like depends on the day of the week whether or not I'm actually going to try to attempt it. Because I just feel like that one's more co-op, where it's like, hey, you really need to speak with those people to kind of, you know, formulate a strategy where it's like, hey, you have X amount of people standing by the base and defending, where it's like when the moment strikes right, you pick off at least one, a good solid 2 members, then that's when you want to make your push. And the communication on that, I think this makes that mode just a lot trickier versus the other 3 modes, for better or for worse. I hear that from a lot of different people, including some of my friends though. So yeah, you had all 4 of those ranked modes though, and then also you had rank X, which, you know, rank X, obviously you have to manage to level yourself up enough within just a standard, you know, anarchy battles, which that's what they call them in this one though. But those standard anarchy battles, there's solo in it. Once you got your rank up to like S+0, then you can go ahead and unlock rank X, which I put a lot of time up in that. It kind of operates the same though. However, once you manage to get in, there's no way to get kicked out. Unlike Splatoon 2, where it's like, if you lost enough battles, you can actually demote yourself though. But in this one, once you're in, you stay in for the 3 months, and then everything gets reset at the end of the season though. And then, interestingly enough, it's not just only those 3 modes, but even in the ranked battles themselves, you had Anarchy, solo, and you had Anarchy where you can join it with a team, or you can also attempt it solo though. So that was just another way to be able to play an additional ranked mode up in the game, whereas, you know, typically you're only used to being able to have access to standard rank and maybe if you did duos back in Splatoon 2, but now it's like you can always have access to 2 different rank modes between Anarchy solo or Anarchy team, even if you're joining in solo. And then also, if you haven't unlocked rank X, boom, there's another mode right there. So you have access to almost potentially at max 3 different rank modes at any given point if you manage to unlock everything within a given season. So that was really cool in and of itself though. But then they also have one more thing where normally where you had league battles in Splatoon 2, you had like these league options where it's like they managed to pull or bend some kind of rule setup on it where it's like, hey, if you manage to join in with a couple of people or a team, hey, you can jump higher, or you can join the solo. You can jump higher or something like that, or it's like all chargers, or everybody has to use some kind of a brush weapon or something like that. They changed some kind of unique rule within the play style where you had to come in with certain weapons or certain equipment, and then you just duke it out with them right in there. I think that's a good idea in theory, and it wasn't there necessarily at launch. But the thing that I felt where it fell flat on itself was the fact that it was only available for a limited period of time. It was only available for a certain period of time. And I think that was my major nitpick. Like, they'll only have it open for like a few days out of the week and only running it for about 24 hours. I was like, wait, why don't you just leave this open for a whole week? Or maybe a couple weeks before you rotate to something else. That way you give people the ability to be able to challenge these different modes at any given time. Because once you factor in, time of day and then time zones and stuff like that, a lot of people's schedules might not line up with whatever you happen to line up, Nintendo does. So I hope they go back to the drawing board on that and, bring that mess back, but just kind of change some stuff here and there though. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of most of the multiplayer from a standard level though. But then also you have the Grisco stuff. Yes, you're going in there, the salmon run stuff. Man, oh man, I had a lot of fun times playing this mess though, because one of the most intriguing things that they managed to add up into this game in particular was the whole thing where you had these boss rushes and stuff, where it was like once every few months when the new season happens to come into play though, you have a big run event where literally you have to fight these big old colossal creatures, and literally, they were tough to beat down. Obviously, the main thing you manage to get from beating these things is fish scales, which you use those fish scales to kind of unlock cooler gear as you manage to keep playing this game over and over and over though. But man, some of those bosses like the Kohozuna and stuff like that, like some of them were easy, some of them were hard. And then obviously when you had all three of those major bosses all at one time, that was insane. Like some of those times you just had to get lucky. So they had stuff like that. They had extra work where it's like, hey, you try to get as many different eggs as possible, and you're given, wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, and pit it up against the high scores of everybody else that happened to get it, and that determines how many fish scales you get at the end of the event. So they had stuff like that, and then obviously just standard salmon run and stuff though, because there's some people that don't vibe as well as with the standard multiplayer versus actually having all the stuff that you're able to do in salmon run itself though. So overall, I really enjoyed it a lot more so in Splatoon 2. Granted, yes, they made the major inclusion that yes, you can have access to salmon run 24/7 versus locking it up to, only having it within certain periods of time in Splatoon 2. So I think that was a great evolution from 2 to 3 though. So overall, once you looked at the multiplayer, the single player stuff, and also just salmon run stuff, I think Splatoon 3 is a great, phenomenal game. Don't get me wrong, it does a lot of stuff right, but at the same point, there was always room for improvement from one Splatoon game to the other. There's been some good stuff like, having Salmon Run open up 24/7 versus Splatoon 2 and stuff. The fact that you have all of these big major updates and stuff that happen in, every season, every 3 months, while yes, it's not a slow trickle feed that you had in Splatoon 2. I personally liked it when they just gave you a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning of the month and just kind of brought excitement back to the game, a few times throughout the given year. So there were some good things that they really did well, and other things I would like to see improve. But then that kind of leads you in the question of like, where do you go from Splatoon 3 to 4? Because a lot of people, if you're just casually playing the game, didn't see a lot of value from going from 2 to 3, and some people wish that maybe we should have saved 3 until the Switch 2 actually came out, and then the upgrades would have been that much more substantial though. But I saw enough in this game to warrant them actually pulling out a sequel though. But from here on, if you do everything you did in Splatoon 3 and change up a few things though, you still gotta have something else major brought to the table though. So I'm thinking maybe you bring in some kind of bigger mode where it's like a 4v4v4v4, so it's like 16 people out on the field, or you do teams of like 8v8 or something like that, or bring in a brand new rank mode or something like that. Shake things up, like where you get rid of Clan Blitz. No one really needs Clan Blitz, and then bring in something else or something like that in order to kind of fulfill that rank mode and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things I feel like they can do. Probably a lot of things that Splatoon team is kind of sitting, meditating on though. But overall, what you had with Splatoon 3 is still a great game. This kind of leaves a little bit more to be desired though. But hey, I still put countless hours up in this game. While yes, I might have put over 1,000 hours in Splatoon 2, I'm close to around 600, maybe 700 hours in Splatoon 3. So it is still one of my go-to shooters for Nintendo personally though. But you gotta let me know down in the comment section down below, what all did you think about Splatoon 3? Like, do you really like and enjoy this game? Does it kind of leave a little bit more left to be desired after coming off of 2? Or are you one of those few out there that actually likes Splatoon 2 a little bit better than 3? Hey, the Octo expansion, I'll give it to it with that game. That DLC campaign, man, that's like one of my most favorite DLC campaigns out there. Hear it point blank in the discussion though. But yeah, that's gonna basically do it in terms of today's video though. So if you really like this, make sure to go and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. And if you're curious to support the channel just a little bit more and you want to feel free to just become a channel member, and feel free to click that join link down below. But that's gonna do it for today's video though. So remember y'all, until our video I make next, see y'all.